Have you ever wondered what it feels like to be the person others instinctively look up to, without saying a word? What if you stopped being the option or backup plan and became the standard everyone aspires to? In a world drowning in noise, chaos, and endless validation seeking, there's an almost magical power in simply being someone who commands respect through quiet confidence. Welcome to this episode, where we're diving deep, not into tricks or manipulations, but into the essential transformation that starts from within. Because real power, respect, and attraction don't begin with others. They start with you. What if you became the kind of person who doesn't just catch people's attention momentarily, but instead becomes the unwavering presence they seek? Imagine no longer being the second choice, the overlooked one, or the person waiting for someone else's approval. Instead, picture yourself as the standard in a world obsessed with speed, noise, and constant external validation. There's something incredibly rare, almost untouchable, about those who move with quiet confidence. These individuals don't shout to be heard, nor do they plead for attention. Their presence alone commands the room, as if their very being speaks louder than words ever could. Have you noticed how some people, despite being calm and composed, seem impossible to ignore? That's the magnetic force of genuine self-assurance. But here's the truth. This episode isn't about playing mind games or manipulating how others see you. It's far deeper than surface-level tactics or hollow affirmations. It's about rebuilding the very foundation of how you see yourself. Because when your internal view shifts, the world around you transforms too. Respect, attraction, influence, they don't start with other people noticing you first. They begin with the respect you cultivate for yourself. When you truly recognize your own worth, others naturally follow suit. So, if you're exhausted from feeling invisible or like you're always the second choice, stay with me. Because the 12 keys we're about to explore aren't just about appearing high value to others. They're about becoming that high value person from the inside out. Know your value before anyone else. Does every person you encounter carries a silent scale in their mind? It's an invisible balance weighing who deserves their time, their respect, and their loyalty. But here's a difficult truth. That scale is often tipped not by who you truly are deep down, but by how you present yourself to the world. Think about this. If you enter a room without clearly understanding your own worth, others will happily define it for you, usually in ways that benefit them, not you. How many times have you caught yourself downplaying your talents, intelligence, or needs just to fit in? Smiling when you wanted to speak up? Staying silent when your heart begged you to be heard? Or agreeing when every fiber of your being screamed, "No"? That's the subtle price you pay when you don't know your true value. Instead of being the architect of your identity, you become a reflection of other people's expectations. This is not just about confidence, it's about clarity. Knowing your value means you stop asking the world for permission to believe in yourself. It's a quiet, unshakable conviction that doesn't need applause or external validation. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Your worth is determined by the value of your thoughts." This isn't about superficial self-praise or ego-boosting mantras. It points to something deeper, the disciplined way you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. Because if your inner dialogue is riddled with doubt, shame, comparison, and fear, how can you expect anyone else to treat you with the reverence you deserve? Picture this. Two people walk into the same room. The first is accomplished, talented, even strikingly beautiful, but carries hesitation. They look around nervously, searching every glance for approval. The second is simpler in appearance, quieter, but moves with calm certainty. Who catches your eye first? Who lingers in your mind long after they leave? It's rarely the loudest or flashiest person. It's the one who radiates self-trust, the one who embodies real magnetism that can't be faked or easily explained. This is the kind of presence you want to cultivate, not by shouting louder or trying harder, but by building a foundation of self-respect and clarity that shines. Continuing from the idea of knowing your value, let's explore deeper how you protect and uphold that value in your life. Knowing your worth also means being willing to let go of anything that doesn't honor it. This is the part most people avoid because it feels uncomfortable. It means having the courage to walk away from relationships where you're merely tolerated, not celebrated. It means leaving jobs where you're underpaid and overworked, even though you know you're capable of so much more. Sometimes it means enduring a season of loneliness because you refuse to settle for shallow, surface-level connections. But that discomfort is sacred. It is the birthplace of real power. Choosing yourself isn't an act of pride. It's a quiet rebellion rooted in principle. And it all begins with what you allow into your life. When you truly know your worth, you don't let just anyone enter your personal space. You don't grant unlimited access to those who haven't earned it. You no longer keep proving your kindness at the expense of your own peace. Instead, you draw boundaries not with aggression but with grace, and honor them consistently. Yes, some people will feel intimidated by that. Let them be. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to become so aligned with your truth that anyone who doesn't value it simply filters themselves out. So ask yourself, if I fully knew my value, what would I stop doing today? Who would I stop trying to impress? What would I walk away from, not out of anger, but because it no longer reflects who I am? These aren't easy questions, but they are necessary. Because when you truly know your worth, you stop playing roles that don't fit. You stop auditioning for love, approval, or belonging. You simply show up fully, and those who are meant for you will recognize the difference. Not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. And that's where transformation begins. Next, let's talk about stopping the shrinking of yourself to fit into places you've outgrown. There is a silent kind of self-betrayal that doesn't scream. It only whispers. It looks like biting your tongue in a room where your voice should lead. It looks like dimming your light so others don't feel overshadowed. It looks like pretending to be satisfied with less just to avoid being seen as too much. Over time, that silence becomes a habit. That shrinking becomes your identity. But your soul remembers. It remembers who you were before you started adjusting yourself to make others comfortable. We don't always realize it, but much of our suffering comes from this very pattern, forcing ourselves to remain small in environments we have long since outgrown. Maybe it's a relationship that once felt like home but now feels like a cage. Maybe it's a job that used to challenge you but now only drains you. Or maybe it's the way you speak, dress, or move, carefully tailored not to offend, not to disrupt, not to be too different. But growth has a cost. And often, that cost is leaving behind versions of yourself that no longer reflect who you are becoming. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But here's the twist. Becoming who you are doesn't mean staying where you have always been. It means honoring that inner evolution even when it disrupts comfort, connection, or control. Especially then, think about how nature works. Building on the idea of letting go and embracing growth, let's delve deeper into what true maturation and inner strength look like. A snake must shed its skin to grow. A tree must let go of its leaves to survive the winter. Yet, as humans, we often try to carry old identities into new seasons, hoping to hold on to familiarity without sacrificing our expansion. But here's the truth. What you're unwilling to release, you will eventually resent. Staying in a place you've outgrown doesn't just stunt your growth. It slowly eats away at your self-respect. There is a clear difference between humility and hiding. One is rooted in strength, the other in fear. Yet many confuse the two. They believe that playing small is noble and that invisibility is polite. But shrinking yourself doesn't protect you. It erases you. And if you keep erasing yourself just to be accepted, don't be surprised when the world forgets to see you at all. You teach others how to treat you by the way you treat yourself. If you consistently lower your standards just to keep people around, you train them to expect the bare minimum from you. If you stay silent when you should speak up, you teach them that your voice isn't worth listening to. If you bend your values to avoid conflict, you make it easier for others to cross boundaries they should never approach. So here's the challenge. Where are you still playing small? What environments are you clinging to because they feel safe, even though they no longer serve you? And more importantly, who could you become if you finally stopped apologizing for your growth? True alignment means stepping into spaces that match your current strength, not shrinking to fit the comfort of your past. It means letting go of people who only love the older version of you, because the newer version has different standards. It means outgrowing mindsets that once helped you survive, but now keep you stuck. And yes, there will be loss. But not every loss is a tragedy. Some are necessary evolutions, sacred endings that clear the path for your real life to begin. Because when you stop shrinking, you stop seeking validation from places that never had the capacity to honor you in the first place. You stop dimming your light to fit into rooms you were meant to redesign, not adjust to. This isn't arrogance. It's authenticity. It's choosing to live fully, even if it means standing alone for a while. Because the moment you stop shrinking, you start expanding into the person you were always meant to be. Next, let go of the need for constant validation. Why do we crave so desperately to be seen? Why do we keep checking our phones, mirrors, and conversations, hoping for some sign that we matter? For many, validation becomes like oxygen. Without it, they feel invisible. But the deeper you go within yourself, the clearer it becomes. Needing constant approval is not love, it's dependency. It's the emotional equivalent of hunger that's never quite satisfied. The problem isn't that we want to be valued. That's human. The problem is when our sense of identity starts depending on other people's reactions. When we don't feel beautiful until someone tells us so. When we don't feel accomplished until it's acknowledged. When we don't trust a decision until it's praised. That's when the trap begins. Because the moment your worth depends on someone else's applause, you've given away your power. Epictetus said it plainly. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. It's a radical truth because it means letting go of the illusion that everyone has to understand you. It means you might make choices others don't agree with. You might follow a path they can't see, and you'll have to live with that. Not in bitterness, but in quiet confidence. There is something deeply liberating about not needing to be applauded, about doing the right thing even when no one notices, about standing firm in your values when everyone else is bending. Building on the power of letting go of constant validation. There's another crucial step on this journey: cultivating a presence that doesn't chase attention but commands respect quietly from within. This kind of presence, one that doesn't seek to be seen or heard at all costs, requires real inner work. It takes time and patience to unlearn the habit of people-pleasing, to sit comfortably with the silence that follows when you stop broadcasting your worth to the world and instead begin living it privately, deeply, and unapologetically. Here lies the true transformation. When you let go of the need for external validation, you don't become weaker, you become more powerful. Your energy settles, becoming grounded rather than scattered in reaction to every opinion or passing judgment. You stop reacting impulsively and instead start moving from a place of inner clarity. And people notice this shift. They might not say it aloud, but they feel it. An unmistakable energy radiating from someone who no longer depends on applause or approval to feel strong and confident in their stance. But let's be honest, releasing the craving for validation is uncomfortable at first. It can feel like rejection, emptiness, or invisibility. If you've spent much of your life being praised for being agreeable, attractive, or successful, letting go of that external feedback may feel like losing a part of yourself. Yet what you're truly shedding is the mask, the performance. In its place, you discover something far more enduring: self-trust. Begin paying close attention to your own motivations. When you post on social media, is it to express your true self or to be validated by others? When you offer help, does it come from a genuine love or from a need to feel needed? When you make decisions, do you base them on your own truth or on how you think others will perceive you? The more honest you become with yourself, the more you can shift from performing for the world to simply being yourself. Here's the beautiful irony: the less you seek approval, the more authentic respect you attract. Not the shallow kind that hinges on appearances or surface charm, but the respect from those who recognize your genuine strength, not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. So stop chasing applause. Stop explaining your worth. Stop filtering your truth just to be liked. If you want peace, power, and freedom, let go of the need to be validated. You'll be amazed at how quiet and peaceful life becomes. And in that silence, you'll finally meet someone you may have been avoiding for far too long: your true self. Next, let's talk about setting boundaries without guilt. It sounds simple on paper, doesn't it? Say no. Walk away. Protect your peace. But the reality is that setting boundaries isn't just about words or actions. It's a reflection of your sense of worth. If you were raised to believe that love means self-sacrifice, or kindness means being endlessly available, boundaries might feel like betrayal, not just to others, but to yourself. You're not weak because you struggle to say no. You're not broken because you feel the urge to explain yourself every time you choose yourself over others. That's conditioning. Years of silent programming teaching you that your value depended on being agreeable, liked, and needed. But here's a truth many avoid. If your love is only appreciated when given without limits, then it was never truly seen, only consumed. Seneca once wrote, You must live for yourself. If you wait for others to live for you, you'll die waiting. It might sound harsh, but it's honest. You can spend your life being there for everyone, answering every call, fixing every crisis, softening every blow, and still feel invisible when you need help yourself. Why? Because people often get used to the version of you that serves them best, not the one that protects you most. Boundaries are the quiet language of self-respect. They're not walls to shut others out. They're doors with locks, and you hold the key. You get to decide who receives your energy, your time, and your presence. Building on the foundation of setting boundaries and protecting your self-worth, let's explore managing your energy wisely and learning to let go of unnecessary attachments with grace. Not everyone deserves your full access. Not everyone has earned it. And admitting this isn't cruelty, it's clarity. Imagine your energy as currency. Would you hand out $100 bills to every stranger who asks? Of course not. Yet every time you say yes out of guilt, every time you overextend yourself to avoid conflict, that's exactly what you're doing. You're spending your peace on things that do not nourish you. And in the end, it leaves you emotionally bankrupt, exhausted, resentful, and quietly angry at yourself for letting it happen again. The moment you set a boundary, something magical happens. The people who truly love you adjust. They may be surprised, even uncomfortable at first, but those who care about your well-being learn to respect your limits. Those who only valued your availability slowly fade away. Let them. Setting boundaries also means breaking the habit of over-explaining. You don't need a thesis to say no. I can't. That doesn't work for me. I need some time. These are complete sentences. Your peace does not require permission. And if someone gets upset when you draw a line, remember, the problem isn't your boundary, but their expectation of unrestricted access. Perhaps the hardest part of all is this. You have to keep reinforcing your boundaries, even when you feel lonely, even when guilt creeps in, even when you miss the old version of yourself who said yes to everything. Because the new version, the one who honors your energy, your time, your space, is building something unshakable. Self-trust. So ask yourself, where in your life are you still saying yes when you mean no? Who in your circle constantly crosses lines you've never had the courage to draw? And what part of you still believes love must be earned through sacrifice? It's time to let go that illusion. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. You are not cold for choosing silence over chaos. You are learning to love yourself, not just in words, but in actions. And that is a boundary no one can cross. You are not difficult for having limits. Next, let's talk about detaching without drama. Not every goodbye needs fireworks. Not every ending requires a speech. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away quietly, with your dignity intact and your peace preserved. But many of us struggle with that. We confuse closure with confrontation. We think healing requires the other person's participation, and we carry this unspoken belief that for our leaving to be justified, it must be understood. But here's the truth. Detachment is not about proving your point. It's not about being cold or heartless. It's about choosing yourself without creating a storm in the process. You don't have to destroy what hurt you. You just have to stop feeding it. Lao Tzu wrote, "When I let go of what I am, I become what I might be." Detachment is the space between who you were and who you are becoming. It's the sacred in between, and it often begins with silence. The kind that feels uncomfortable at first but becomes clarity over time. Because once you stop reacting, once you stop explaining, you start seeing things as they are, not as you hoped they would be. But detaching with grace takes strength, especially when your identity was wrapped around being the fixer, the one always reaching out, always explaining, always trying to make things work. Continuing from the power of detachment, let's explore what letting go truly means and how it frees you to reclaim yourself. Letting go often feels like giving up, but it's not. It's giving yourself back. It's declaring, I will no longer abandon myself just to keep others comfortable. Society has conditioned us to believe that silence equals weakness and distance means bitterness. But what if silence and distance actually signal maturity? What if they mean you're done with cycles that drain your energy? Done with conversations that lead nowhere, done with clinging to people who only show up when it's convenient? Not every disconnection needs to be a battle. Some people simply fade away, and that's okay. Others might poke, provoke, try to pull you back with guilt, drama, or emotional games. That's when your silence becomes your boundary. That's when your peace becomes your message. And make no mistake, silence is a powerful message. It says, I no longer need to argue for my worth. It says, I've seen enough. It says, I'm moving forward and not everyone can come with me. And it says all this without uttering a single word. It's tempting to want to leave a mark, to be remembered, to have the last word. But true power doesn't crave remembrance. It craves freedom. Freedom from the weight of old stories, freedom from the need to be understood, freedom from performing your healing as a show for others. So how do you know you've truly detached? When your energy no longer spikes at their name. When you don't check your phone hoping for a message. When you can think of the past without bitterness. Not because it didn't hurt, but because you've outgrown the version of yourself that stayed too long. Detachment isn't indifference. It's wisdom. It's knowing when something has run its course and no longer serves your growth. It's stepping back, not with resentment, but with respect for yourself and for the season that's ending. So ask yourself, what relationships, habits, or thought patterns are you still holding on to out of fear, not love? What drama are you still fueling because a part of you fears what silence might reveal? And what would happen if you simply stopped? No announcement, no explanation, just peace. Next, protect your energy like the sacred space it is. There's a reason you feel drained around certain people. There's a reason some conversations leave you heavier instead of lighter. Your energy isn't infinite. It's a sacred currency. And just as you wouldn't leave your front door wide open for anyone to walk through, you shouldn't leave your emotional and mental space unguarded. Because not everyone deserves access. Not every interaction is worth your inner peace. Jim Rohn once said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." This is more than a catchy phrase. It's a reminder that your environment shapes you every day, often in ways you don't even realize. The people you allow close influence your mindset, habits, and beliefs. So if you're constantly surrounded by chaos, negativity, or emotional neediness, don't be surprised when you start carrying that same weight, even if it's not truly yours. Protecting your energy isn't selfish. It's strategic, because everything you want to build, your growth, clarity, and emotional balance depends on having the space to breathe, to think, to be. If your life is filled with noise, you'll never hear your own voice. If you're always reacting, you'll forget how to feel. Start looking at your energy like a garden. What you feed grows. What you neglect dies. Who and what you allow in either nurtures your spirit or tramples it. So ask yourself honestly, who waters your roots and who pulls at your branches? What habits recharge you and which ones drain you until you're numb? This doesn't mean cutting everyone out or living in isolation. Building on the awareness of protecting your energy, let's dive deeper into who and what you allow into your life, because they either nourish your spirit or trample it. So honestly, ask yourself, who waters your roots and who pulls at your branches? What habits recharge you and which ones drain you until you're numb? This doesn't mean cutting everyone out or living in isolation. It means becoming intentional. It means recognizing when a conversation is no longer productive, when a friendship has become one-sided, when your time is consumed by people who only take but never give back. And it means having the courage to act on that awareness, to distance yourself, even quietly, from what disturbs your center. But here's where it gets even more real. Sometimes the energy you need to protect yourself from is your own. The overthinking, the self-doubt, the constant guilt of not doing enough. We often sabotage our own peace before the world even gets a chance. So protecting your energy also means setting boundaries with your own thoughts, catching the inner critic mid-sentence, replacing overanalysis with presence, practicing stillness instead of spiraling out of control. There's deep power in knowing when to pull back, in turning off your phone, in saying, I don't have space for this right now, in recognizing that just because someone wants your attention doesn't mean they've earned it. And just because something is urgent to someone else doesn't mean it's a priority for you. You'll know you're protecting your energy when you stop explaining your peace, when you stop over-apologizing for needing space, when you no longer feel the need to justify your silence, because real peace doesn't always look polite. Sometimes it looks like not answering the call, not joining the drama, not attending the argument. And yes, some people won't understand this version of you, the one who chooses presence over pressure, stillness over stress, detachment over performance. But that's okay. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be, well, to be whole, to be awake to what really matters. So the next time you feel that gentle pull, that quiet urge to disconnect from what drains you, honor it. Don't second guess it. That's your soul trying to protect the part of you that's still healing, still growing, still remembering that not everything deserves a response. Not every fire needs your oxygen, and not every person deserves a front row seat in your life. Next, let's talk about being okay with being misunderstood. One of life's most painful truths is this: you can speak from your heart, act with integrity, show up with love, and still be misunderstood. You can be honest and be seen as arrogant, be kind and be seen as weak, be silent and be seen as cold. No matter how carefully you try to explain yourself, some people will only hear what their wounds allow. That's where most people get stuck. They spend their energy trying to correct the narrative, trying to fix how they're seen, trying to make everyone understand. But the pursuit of being fully understood by everyone is not a noble goal. It's a losing battle, because at some point, you have to decide, do I want to live a life of depth or a life of constant explanation? Inzi once wrote, those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. Not everyone is tuned to your frequency. Not everyone has the emotional capacity to interpret your silence, your passion, your detachment, your drive. Some people will mislabel your growth as selfishness, Others will see your healing as distance, but that's not your burden to carry. There's a quiet kind of strength that comes when you no longer need to be. Building on the power of presence and meaningful silence, let's dive deeper into the inner journey you must take to fully live your true value. Sometimes this journey is deeply personal, internal, and belongs solely to you. Think about how many times you've stayed in unhealthy dynamics just to avoid being seen as the bad one. How many times you've over-explained your boundaries, your needs, your decisions, not because you were unsure, but because you feared rejection or judgment. But here's the truth. People who need you to explain your worth will never truly see it. And people who truly see you won't need the explanation. Being misunderstood can feel lonely, but that loneliness is sacred. It's the space where you begin to trust your own voice above the noise. It's where your integrity matures. It's where your self-respect becomes non-negotiable. Because when you learn to live without the need for constant approval, you become unshakable. Your peace no longer depends on whether others understand you. And ironically, that's when the right people start to appear. The ones who hear your silence and understand its meaning. The ones who don't need a perfect version of you, just a real one. The ones who don't punish your boundaries, but respect them without being told. But you'll never find them if you're still stuck trying to convince the wrong ones. So the next time someone misreads your actions, questions your path, or distorts your intention, breathe. Let it pass. You're not responsible for how they choose to interpret what they were never willing to understand in the first place. This is your permission to stop explaining your peace, to stop justifying your healing, to stop narrating your evolution for people who only listen when they feel centered in the story. Let your life speak for itself. Let your actions reflect your values. Let your silence protect your soul. The right people will hear your music even if they don't understand every note. Next, let your presence speak louder than your words. There is a power that requires no performance. A strength that doesn't come from how much you say, but from how you carry yourself when you say nothing at all. We live in a world full of noise. People talk to be heard, post to be seen, perform to be validated. But amid that storm of voices, there's something undeniably magnetic about someone who walks into a room without demanding attention, yet somehow naturally commands it. You've seen this person before. Someone who moves slowly, calmly, with no need to prove anything. They aren't the loudest, they aren't chasing the spotlight, but their presence settles the entire room. That's no accident. It's intentional energy, the result of inner work, steadfast self-trust, and the quiet decision to stop chasing approval and start embodying it. Alan Watts once said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." It is so plain, and yet everybody rushes around in a great panic. That panic shows up in how we over-explain, overshare, overdo, constantly trying to prove our worth. But the irony is, the more you try to prove your value with words, the more people question if it's real. Because true presence doesn't need a press release, it just is. Your energy enters the room before you do. The way you walk, hold eye contact, and listen, all speak volumes about your inner world. Building on the power of presence and living your standards, let's explore what it truly means to be grounded and at peace within yourself. Are you calm? Are you grounded? Are you at peace with yourself? Or are you still fighting for space in a world that hasn't yet given it to you? To let your presence speak loudly without words, you must first find quietness within. peel away the performative layers you wear. Sit with the discomfort of silence. Learn to enjoy your own company so deeply that you no longer feel the need to rush to fill empty spaces with noise. Presence isn't about perfection, it's about wholeness. And wholeness isn't loud, it's steady and stable. But make no mistake, presence is not passivity. It doesn't mean you let life walk over you while you smile silently. True presence means your strength runs far deeper than mere reaction. It means you choose your words carefully because you understand their weight. It means you move with purpose, not panic. You act based on values, not fear. If you want to be treated like a luxury, stop explaining your worth like a bargain. Let your standards be known by how you move, not by how often you announce them. Speak less about your intentions and more through your actions, because people may question your words, but they rarely forget your energy. Think about this. When was the last time you were deeply impressed by someone simply because of how they showed up? Not what they wore, not what they said, but the quiet clarity they carried. That kind of presence is rare because it's earned through discipline, through boundaries, and through a commitment to self-awareness. And the beauty is, you don't need to be anyone else to build it. You just need to stop diluting yourself. Stop rushing. Stop trying to prove anything. Just be. Be so aligned that your presence becomes the standard. That your silence becomes a language only the right people understand. So next time you feel the urge to overshare to gain approval, pause, breathe, and step into yourself. Your presence, when fully claimed, says everything others need to know. 9. Don't just talk standards, live them. It's easy to say what you deserve. It's easy to write it down in journals, declare it in conversations, post about it online. I deserve respect, I won't settle, I have high standards. But here's a truth many avoid. Standards aren't just what you say you want. They're what you consistently allow, tolerate, choose, and return to, even after promising yourself you'd never go back. We often talk about our worth as if it's a concept, something abstract and untouchable. But worth is practical. It shows up in the small daily decisions you make, in the phone calls you answer, in the people you give second, third, or even 10th chances to, and in how quickly you betray yourself just to avoid tension. Every time you compromise your values, for comfort or connection, you teach the world what your real standard is. Not the one you talk about, but the one you live. Epictetus put it simply, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. That means stop telling people what kind of treatment you expect and start making it obvious through your actions. When you respect yourself deeply, you don't need to advertise it. It shows in how you say no, how you walk away, how you don't chase anyone who treats you like an afterthought. But this isn't easy, because there is often a gap between what we believe and what we practice. You may believe you deserve a peaceful relationship, but still stay in one filled with chaos, hoping love will fix what boundaries are supposed to handle. Building on the importance of living your standards, let's now explore the deep honesty required to truly honor them in every aspect of your life. You may believe you deserve financial security, yet continue habits that drain both your wallet and your self-trust. You may believe you deserve emotional respect, but you shrink your needs because you don't want to appear too much. Living your standards means being radically honest with yourself, asking the hard questions. Where am I still settling? What am I pretending not to see? What part of me fears that if I raise my standards, I'll be left alone? And when the answers come, having the courage to act on them. Not tomorrow, not next year, but now. Because here's the real cost of not living your standards. Resentment. Resentment toward others for not treating you better, and resentment toward yourself for allowing it. Over time, this quiet self-betrayal becomes a heavy burden. No amount of external success can compensate for the internal erosion caused by living beneath your own bar. The solution isn't to become rigid or harsh, it's to become clear. Clear on what aligns with your values and what doesn't. Clear on what you want and what you are no longer willing to accept. Most importantly, clear on the fact that the world doesn't give you what you say you want. It gives you what you demand through the way you live. So if you want to be seen as high value, become non-negotiable with your peace, your time, and your energy. Let people feel your boundaries without you needing to shout them. Let your daily choices reflect deep respect for your own journey. Because when you live your standards, not perfectly, but consistently, you no longer need to convince anyone of your worth. They will see it or they won't. But either way, you will feel it. Be unavailable to inconsistency. One of the most powerful decisions you will ever make is to stop entertaining half-hearted efforts. Because inconsistency isn't confusion, it's communication. People will always test your boundaries, not with words, but with behavior. If someone keeps disappearing and reappearing in your life, if they make promises in the light but vanish in the dark, if they give just enough to keep you hopeful but never enough to feel safe, that's not a gray area. That's a red flag you've normalized. Being unavailable to inconsistency means refusing to participate in patterns that insult your intelligence and drain your spirit. It means no longer accepting breadcrumbs when you have made it clear you bring the full table. It means stopping the rationalization of emotional instability just because the highs are intoxicating. Because at some point, you have to ask yourself, why am I making space for people who only show up when it's convenient for them? Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it, and we do, especially when we keep emotionally investing in uncertainty. We waste time waiting for mixed signals to become clear. We waste energy interpreting silence, replaying words, trying to decode behavior that's already telling us everything we need to know. But if someone's presence in your life causes more questions than answers, that's your answer." The deeper issue isn't just the other person. It's what part of you still finds comfort in chaos. Inconsistency is often familiar to those raised with unstable affection. If love once meant proving yourself, earning attention, or waiting to be chosen, you may now unconsciously associate uncertainty with desire. Building on the necessity of rejecting unclear and unstable relationships, let's now dive deeper into redefining what true connection means in your life. But that's not love. That's emotional survival disguised as intense chemistry. To truly break this cycle, you have to redefine what connection means to you. Real connection isn't built on adrenaline or fleeting feelings. It's built on emotional reliability. Do you know what real attraction looks like? It's peace, safety, and full presence. When someone says they'll call, and they do. When they don't just apologize but actually change. When you don't have to shrink or second-guess yourself just to be accepted. Being unavailable to inconsistency means you'd rather be alone than confused. That your self-respect won't bend to accommodate someone else's immaturity. That you're done hoping people will rise to meet your love when they've shown you they can't even meet themselves. It also means holding yourself to the same standard. Are you being consistent with yourself, with your values, your self-care, your goals? Because inconsistency starts from within, and if you're still wavering on what you want, still negotiating with your own standards, still choosing comfort over clarity, the outside world will mirror that indecision right back to you. So here's your invitation. Make a list. Write down what consistent behavior looks like to you. Not in fantasy, but in reality. What does it feel like to be respected? What does it sound like when someone honors your time, your space, and your heart? And then when you meet someone who can't offer that, you walk away. Not out of anger, not to make a point, but because your soul has simply outgrown confusion. You are not a maybe. You are not a backup plan. You are not an emotional experiment someone tries when they're bored. You are either a yes or a no, and anything in between is a place you no longer belong. 11. Stop explaining yourself to people who don't care. There's a deep exhaustion that comes from constantly trying to be understood, especially by people who have already made up their minds about you. You explain your silence, you explain your boundaries, you explain your distance, your healing, your transformation, not because you owe them an answer, but because a part of you still craves their validation, still hopes that if you explain it just right, they'll finally get it. But some people don't listen to understand. They listen to respond, or worse, they don't listen at all. Carl Jung once said, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important." And that's the kind of loneliness that stings the most. Being surrounded by people who hear your words, but never your meaning. People who mock your growth because it threatens their comfort. People who confuse your clarity for coldness. And the more you explain, the more you drain. So here's the truth. You don't owe everyone access to your inner world, especially not those who minimize it, mock it, or twist it. Your peace isn't a group discussion. Your decisions aren't up for a vote. And your evolution isn't a performance for critics who never supported your becoming in the first place. There's a sacredness in holding parts of yourself back from those who haven't earned them. It's not about being mysterious. It's about being wise. Discernment means knowing the difference between those who deserve to know you deeply and those who just want to be close enough to have an opinion. And let's be honest, explaining yourself can become a form of begging. Begging to be seen, to be understood, to be forgiven for choosing yourself. But self-respect begins where explanations end. When you finally say, "This is my truth, and I no longer need it to be palatable for you to accept it." Of course, it's not easy, especially if you're someone who values harmony, clarity, or closure. Building on the strength found in self-respect and clear boundaries, let's now explore the power of acceptance and becoming your own standard. Especially if you grew up believing that love has to be earned through endless justification. What if the closure you're seeking isn't about others understanding you? What if it's about you accepting that they won't, and still choosing peace anyway, because there's immense power in silence? Not the kind that suppresses, but the kind that protects. When someone crosses a line and you don't argue, you simply walk away. When they act confused and you don't feel the need to clarify, you detach. When they provoke and you don't react, you rise above. The more you heal, the less you find yourself explaining. Not because you're hiding, but because you realize that those who truly care never need a full explanation, just to offer basic respect. And those who demand explanations just to justify their lack of support, they were never truly on your side. So stop oversharing with people who use your vulnerability as ammunition. Stop rehearsing your boundaries like they are apologies. Stop explaining your growth and transformation to those who only knew you when you were dimming your light. You owe no one an explanation for choosing peace, for outgrowing old patterns, for changing your mind, for walking away, or for becoming someone your past self never imagined possible. Some things can stay unsaid. Some goodbyes don't need closure. Some people don't need another explanation. They need distance. 12. Become the standard, not the seeker. There comes a point in your life when you must stop waiting to be chosen. Stop hoping that someone will finally see your worth, recognize your value, or offer you what you've been craving all along. That moment when you stop waiting and start becoming, that's when everything shifts, because you were never meant to beg for attention. You were meant to command it, not through force, but through presence, by becoming the kind of person who doesn't chase value but embodies it fully. Nature's call is clear. Become who you truly are, not who the world expects, not who others. Find convenient but the authentic you beneath the masks, the conditioning, the compromises. And when you do, something remarkable happens. You stop seeking. You stop trying to fit into places that don't feel right. You stop molding yourself just to be accepted because you're no longer available for anything that doesn't match your energy, your vision, your truth. Becoming the standard means demanding more of yourself, not from pressure, but from purpose. Means dressing with respect for yourself, speaking with belief in yourself, moving with the knowledge that your time is valuable. This is not arrogance, it's alignment. A quiet decision to stop shrinking, stop apologizing, and start living as if your life is already worthy. Because it is. This also means becoming comfortable with solitude. The path to becoming isn't crowded. It's quiet, filled with days where no one claps for you, where your growth remains invisible to everyone except yourself. But that's where real transformation happens, when you're no longer performing, just practicing the highest version of yourself. It also means letting go of relationships, habits, and mindsets born from the seeker mentality, building on the journey of becoming your own standard. Let's explore how to truly outgrow your old self and step into the person you were meant to be. When you were trying to earn love, prove yourself, and make others like you, that version of you was playing a role. But it's time to outgrow that role. Because becoming the standard doesn't mean you think you're better than others. It means you're no longer willing to be less than yourself. And yes, this shift will intimidate some people. They'll say, "You've changed," and you have. They'll say you've become distant, and you have, from anything that tried to keep you small. But the people who are meant for you won't be repelled by your growth. They'll be inspired by it. They'll rise to meet you there or respectfully exit. Either way, you're not chasing anyone. So take a moment and ask yourself, if I were already the standard, how would I speak? What would I accept? How would I show up every day? Start doing those things, even if it feels uncomfortable, especially then. Because the more you live like the version of yourself you've been dreaming of, the faster you become it. Not in theory, but in reality. You were never meant to be an option. You were meant to be the example. So stop waiting to be chosen. Become so whole that others have no choice but to rise or walk away. Become so certain of who you are that silence becomes your filter. Become the standard good, because this is the part most people skip. They listen to content like this, feel a spark for a moment, nod and agree. Then they go back to living the same way. But not you. Not this time. You didn't listen to these 12 keys just to feel inspired. You listened because something inside you already knew. You've been settling, shrinking, explaining, overgiving, and you're done. You're done being seen as a backup plan, done making excuses for your standards, done tolerating the kind of energy you would never give. This is your moment to rise, not by shouting louder, but by becoming quieter, clearer and more grounded in who you are. When you walk into a room, your presence should whisper, "I don't need you to choose me. I already did." That's the kind of power no one can fake. That's the kind of worth no one can question. Because it's not written on your profile, it's etched into your character. Remember this. Being a luxury isn't about perfection. It's about being intentional. It's about knowing what you bring and refusing to offer it to those who treat it like a convenience. It's about raising your standards, not to impress others, but to protect your peace. So starting today, stop explaining yourself. Stop chasing closure. Stop making space for energy that only shows up when it's easy. You are the standard now. And when you truly believe that, your world starts to shift. People will either meet you there or they'll remove themselves. Either way, you win. And if this episode stirred something inside you, if it awakened that quiet power waiting for permission to speak, give it that permission. Share this message with someone who needs it. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And most of all, live it. Because the world doesn't need another person waiting to be chosen. It needs more people brave enough to become the one doing the choosing. Your journey starts now.